Hello and welcome. Okay, my camera has straightened itself out. Um, I'm Heather. I am the owner and creator behind Aura Brand Studios, and I help small business owners create authentic digital identities with branding, web design, and marketing funnels. You may have noticed if you've been attending these lives that my co-host Carrie is not here with me today. She has another engagement, but we are going to talk about the different types of structures that a contractor that you might be hiring into your business might be using to manage the work that they're doing with you. If you are joining me here, go ahead and say hi from the comments. Make sure that you are giving StreamYard permission if you are going to be commenting so that I can see your name in the event that you have questions. But basically, I think we're going to probably have a mix of folks on this live here today, people that offer services and people that are hiring for services. This is the second live in a hiring expert series that we've been doing during the Brand Scoop Live, because really, realistically, now is the time to make sure that you have your experts in place if you are planning to do any sort of launches for Q3 and Q4 of this year. Or if you're just at the stage in your business that you are ready to hire in some ongoing support to handle some of the ongoing, consistent day-to-day things that you don't necessarily want to be doing yourself anymore in your business. So I'm going to kick it off here and kind of talk through this from my own perspective in my own journey, from starting freelancing to where I am now, because I have done every different model that I think are the most common. And so I wanted to just chat through the different things that are typical and kind of the pros and cons of the different structures, as well as some of the services that you may see most typically in these different structures. Um, so I think the most common one that we see folks starting out with is an hourly rate. Typically, a freelancer or a contractor is going to set their specific hourly rate. If you are hiring them to do things in your business, you would have to really structure and inform them and manage what they are doing for you during those hours. They would track their time and then obviously bill you for the amount of time that they have used. Sometimes this sort of structure ends up being a little bit trickier for both the freelancer or contractor as well as the business owner. It leaves a little bit more up in the air as far as consistency in what you would be paying your freelancer unless you kind of have an estimated amount of hours that you are blocking in. But once you get to that point, you're kind of really moving more towards a retainer structure. This would just be, whatever the number of hours are worked. Now, I will say most freelancers and contractors will have a minimum amount of time that they are billing anytime they're doing a task. So a lot of people, and y'all might be seeing Quinn jump around in the background right now. A lot of people are going to track a minimum of 15 minutes anytime they're responding to your emails, answering questions, that if they are working on time. Another thing to keep in mind, if you are hiring someone into your business for the first time and they are working on an hourly basis, is that anytime they are doing a task in your business that they would not be doing otherwise, that is billable time. Another thing to keep in mind with this is if the person who is working for you is a little bit newer, there are certain things that you may end up spending more on because they're still learning how to do something, and that might take them a longer amount of time to complete whatever the task is. If you missed the live where Emily Reagan was a special guest last week, we talked a little bit about that, where essentially we were talking about situations in which we had seen other contractors billing 10 to 13 hours for one blog post. And it was because the contractor was not familiar with that task. And so it was taking much, much more time for that task to be completed. So you have both, you as the business owner and your contractor are going to have less of a clear, defined amount of time or budget that you will be staying within each month, but it can be an okay place to start if you are just getting into freelancing and offering services yourself and you're trying to, build up your skills and get some active clients, or you are bringing on a person into your team that may be handling a multitude of tasks that aren't very clearly defined. Once you move past hourly, and for, full transparency, when I first started freelancing myself, I started out at an hourly rate, and I did not have, for most of my clients, I did not have a specific amount of hours that they were required to do. I very quickly shifted into a retainer structure. And essentially, for a retainer structure, this is kind of the happy medium, I think, for both parties. And I think a lot of contractors that wear a lot of hats for their clients tend to sit in this place happily for a long time. So essentially, a retainer is the same sort of situation where you are paying an hourly rate, but you are essentially locking in with your contractor a set number of hours that you are committing to each month. The structure of how those hours have to be used, often it is going to fluctuate from contractor to contractor, but that should be outlined in a contract that you are signing whenever you choose to work with this person. Some people will allow you to roll over hours if you haven't used them all in a month, if they have the availability, while others may not allow any sort of rollover. But when you are working with someone on retainer, you are essentially saying, I'm committing to give you 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours of work per month. But you are paying that same amount even if you do not use those hours. Essentially, what is being decided between both parties is that you are saying, I would like to have you available to support my business for this amount of time each month. And then it's your responsibility as the business owner to ensure that you are providing the amount of work to fill that time. Your contractor should be tracking the amount of time that they've used if they are on retainer so that they can let you know how much is remaining. And when I was working on retainer, if there was some amount of time left for a client, I always made sure that I was letting them know, we have X amount of time. Do you want to do XYZ type of projects to use that up. So that one can be a happy medium for both parties because the contractor as well as the business owner both kind of know a set budget for each month. And then for retainers, another thing that is very common is some people will do them month to month. So you're not locked in for any specific amount of time. You just maybe need to have like a 30-day notice period to let them know you're not continuing services if you decide to do that. Or they may have a minimum number of months that you are required to lock in with them. So 3 months, 6 months, very typical. From there, another area where you may see a lot of contractors working is project-based or package-based. So package-based oftentimes works very similarly to a retainer agreement, but it is typically more focused around a specific set of deliverables that contractor is going to be providing you each month. Whereas a project would be similar. It would be line item based. It would be structured around certain deliverables, but it might not be ongoing. Whereas a package is typically something more like social media or email marketing, where you need that support in an ongoing, consistent structure. And so they are going to give you X number of deliverables each month. Whereas a project basis, it's frequently just a one-time project, right? So when I shifted away from retainers, I moved to traditional project basis initially. And that was when I would bring on a new client. We would have a discussion about what specific projects they wanted to do. And then we would work through those projects in anywhere typically from 4 weeks to 12 weeks, dependent upon what we were doing together. Now, I think that generally speaking, and once again, I would recommend going back and catching the replay from the previous live with Emily. We were talking about specialists versus generalists. I think that most typically you are going to see people who have specialized their services to offer specific things, offering the packages and project-based options, because they're not necessarily billing you on their time anymore. They are billing you on their expertise and the quality of work that they are bringing to the table. So that's most often, branding experts, web designers, funnel builders, and designers, copywriters are very often going to offer project-based and package-based solutions. And then finally, the weird kind of different format that I now use most often in my business are VIP days. And essentially a VIP day is someone who has done a specific service for enough amount of time at a high enough caliber that they are confident in offering that service on a quick turn format. Whenever you are paying for a VIP day, so that is nearly exclusively what I offer now. I do have some ongoing clients, but if we're working on a marketing funnel or something like that, that is still done on a VIP day with them, but they have a VIP day retainer where essentially they are locking in at least one VIP day with me a month. And then we are working on some of those marketing funnels or website updates for them during that day, email sequences, that sort of thing. And a VIP day essentially takes a traditional timeline project. So if we're talking about a marketing sales funnel, typically when I was doing that traditional timeline, that would have been a project that would take approximately 6 to 8 weeks turn. For a website build, typically that would be at least 8 to 12, depending on the actual build, whether it's a brand new site, whether it has e-commerce functionality, whether it's an overhaul of an existing site. All of those things factor in to how long a traditional timeline project is estimated to take. And then obviously, if you are working on a traditional timeline project, those timelines can shift if people do not do their leg of the project on the timeline that was originally outlined. So those can get even longer. But a VIP day essentially takes that traditional timeline project and smushes it down into a handful of days where you are getting that same amount of work done on a very rapid pace. So I like doing work in that way because I feel like I have been working in web design and copy and marketing funnels for long enough that, and like consistently enough, that's pretty much the only thing that I work on at this point, to be able to turn those projects around faster than a traditional timeline. And quite honestly, I can be a little impatient sometimes. And so I like that on a VIP day, I am able, like, the client and I can work collaboratively ahead of the VIP day to gather all of the materials so that we're able to quickly execute on the actual VIP days, instead of having a lot of downtime waiting for materials in between each leg of a traditional timeline project. Not a VIP day is not for everyone on both the person providing the service side as well as the business owner side. For the service provider, sometimes that intense timeline doesn't suit their lifestyle, or just becomes more stressful to them than it's worth. And for the business owner, sometimes it's just not your style to make quick, decisive decisions, um, which is definitely needed when you are working on a VIP day structure. The benefits, obviously, for a VIP day structure is, once again, consolidating down that traditional timeline project to that one day. Because when your freelance service provider is working with you on a traditional timeline, they have multiple clients in the mix, and they are splitting their time up between all of those ongoing concurrent projects. So if something falls off of schedule with your project, they might have to totally shift your timeline because they cannot put their other clients' timelines at jeopardy. Whereas on a VIP day, generally speaking, while your person that you're working with may have other clients that they are working with, on those VIP days, they are specifically focused on getting your work done. And then obviously, like I said, it just consolidates the timeline of getting to that final product a lot faster. Now, the other thing to keep in mind if you are working on with someone on a VIP day structure is that service may cost more for that rapid success delivery of the project. So just keep that in mind. It's the freelancing triad: good, fast, cheap. You can only pick two. So if you want it fast and good, it isn't going to be cheap. And if you want it fast and cheap, it's probably not going to be very good. So yeah, anyone who's watching, if you have any questions for me, definitely let me know. I think that overall, the good thing about all of these different structures is that realistically, there is an option for everyone out there. It's just a matter of figuring out, if you are a service provider, figuring out what works best for you and the type of work that you do. And if you are a small business owner looking to hire, you want to consider if the task is an ongoing need, then realistically, you are going to want to ensure that you have budget to stay with that service provider. I would say for at least 3, if not 6 months, because oftentimes the tasks that would fall into this type of structure would be, like I said before, social media management, email marketing, an online business manager or a project manager, someone who is more of a digital marketing assist, like a generalized digital marketing assistant that's just keeping everything afloat and going all of the time, from a digital marketing standpoint. And so sometimes I think the inclination is to initially hire a generalist that is coming into your business and wearing a lot of different hats. But sometimes that is almost too difficult to keep consistent if you're just starting out in your business when you're first hiring. And so sometimes it's actually better to use some budget to get some of your big, important digital marketing assets built on a project basis or a VIP day basis, because it's a one-time spend. But sometimes those pieces end up staying active and being vital to your business in a digital marketing space for a much longer time. Certain sales funnels, if it's like your primary offering, that initial sales funnel may be in place for years. There might be changes and edits that you make to it, but it might be in place for years. Your website, generally speaking, I feel like a website is going to stay active in your business without, I'm not talking about general maintenance or consistently keeping it updated, because that is something you're always going to want to do, but it should be in place in your business without needing a total facelift or overhaul. I would say generally 3 to 5 years, unless you do a massive rebrand. In that case, you would want to totally reskin your website. But so yeah, those are all things I think that are great to consider whenever you are planning to do some hiring for your business. If you have any sort of questions, definitely go ahead and drop it in the comments and I would be happy to respond. Oh, let's see. We have one from Stephanie. I'm launching new, more specialized offers soon. Pricing is the hardest part of building this out. Yes. And that is, you bring up a good point, Stephanie, because I think from the service provider side, the easiest formats to consider are going to be the hourly and retainer. Whereas for packages, projects, and even VIPs, P days to some extent, you have to have done these projects enough times to know how much time realistically it's going to take you, so that you can provide very detailed line items in a package or a project proposal that aren't going to burn you as far as time commitment. The other thing that should be in contracts, and once again, I'm saying this for the benefit of both service providers and business owners, there should be an outline. If you are working on a package basis, there should, and let's just say that someone is doing some copywriting for you. That proposal should outline the number of revisions that are included in that project. If those things seem very broad, there is a good likelihood that that person that's proposing the work might not be super knowledgeable about that type of service. Generally speaking, I'm trying to think back to whenever I was shifting. I definitely executed some of the projects that I ended up doing on a project basis, traditional timeline project basis first. I was doing for my retainer clients before I offered them as a project, because I needed to understand realistically how much bandwidth was required to execute that project for a client in a way that was beneficial to both of us. So if it's a new service, you know, realistically, if you are the service provider, sometimes when you're trying to figure out your pricing, you might end up with a lower profit at the front end because of certain things that you didn't have super tight and hammered out initially. But the other thing to keep in mind with that is whenever you are offering these services on a project basis at the beginning, if you under quote the price, realistically, those clients are getting this service in almost like a beta round. So in some ways, that's just kind of the way that things work sometimes. And then just to kind of loop back for VIP days, I think that something that often is a little bit confusing for business owners when they are hiring in that format initially, because it's not a way that everyone works, is you know, they feel like they're paying this really big ticket price for 8 hours. But realistically, while yes, you are paying for a certain amount of time versus very specific deliverables, you're actually paying for the quick turn, the expertise of the person to be able to deliver that project on a rapid time frame, and you're paying for additional time that leads up to the actual VIP day to gather the materials, to get all of the insights and information that they need from you, to do some pre-work. Often there's pre-work happening behind the scenes that you might not necessarily see as the business owner. So realistically, when you are doing a VIP day, you are often, and then there's also post work, right? So for my VIP days, for the ones that are a one-off project, you're paying for the time ahead of the VIP day, you're paying for the time during the VIP day, but then you also have 30 days of email support post VIP day project, and you have at least 1 hour per day that our project took of fixed time within a 30-day window after your project, right? So all of those things are being taken into consideration whenever that price point is being developed. So I hope that this was helpful for someone. And like I said, if you have any additional questions or comments, definitely throw them into the comment area and I will try to answer them as best I can. Or if this is something that you have interest in talking about more, feel free to reach out and connect. And I hope that everyone has a fantastic Friday.